everyone, welcome back to the Keys to AWS Optimization. We have an exciting show for you today, talking all about the CFM assessment. If you don't know what that is, stick around and we will be learning all the information from, I'm going the wrong side, our lovely guest Wade from the Optics team. Hey Wade, how you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
All right, we're going to kick off our classic question of the week we always have. And I'll start off with Savannah because I've got to warn Wade, which is, have you had a frugal week or a splurgy week this week, Savannah?
I've had a very frugal week. I found out how much a haircut costs in Seattle and decided to cut my own hair with a YouTube tutorial. So I would say that's pretty frugal. Turned out better than I expected. So we're feeling good. How about you, Steph? Have you been frugal or splurgy this week?
I'm trying to think. I treated myself to some new lights because after filming in the studio last week, I really enjoyed having a lot better quality lights on me. So if you can see me more clearly, that is why. So a little bit of a splurgy week. What about you, Wade?
I think I've had a really frugal week. I've actually been brainstorming around how we can help integrate the frugal architect with more of our customer work. So we've been thinking about frugality all week, all month even.
It's like the month of being frugal. We have a lot of fun chat coming to you today, talking about the CFM assessment. Let's get into the formal intro. So welcome everyone to the Keys to AWS Optimization, the show where we share stories, concepts, and solutions to help you unlock your spend at AWS. My name is Steph Gooch. I'm a senior optimization solution architect advocate here helping you with all your FinOps journey. Savannah?
My name is Savannah Jensen, and I just got a new title, and I think it is Senior Cloud FinOps Architect, if I'm remembering correctly. It's very fresh.
I just said my one wrong.
So. Same role, different name on the optics team here at AWS. Wade, you probably have it down better than I do.
Well, I had to write it down, actually. So that is correct. I'm also a senior cloud FinOps architect with the optics team, new title, but we're still doing the same customer work.
Amazing. And we're going to be getting into the CFM assessment today, which is something that you can do with your account team. And we're going to go through, and we have some special guests coming on to take the actual assessment with Wade, but we'll come on to that in just a moment. We have a bunch of comments, questions in the chat. Don't forget, throughout the whole episode, you can ask us anything around the topic of FinOps or CFM. Greetings from Costlayer, saying out all of the spend. Hey from Cloud Strife, a bunch of hays. Hi all. And you can't join this channel unless you are frugal. Absolutely true. And thanks for the opportunity. Welcome to joining us to learn something, which is great. Let's get into the specifics around what this assessment is that we are talking about. So Wade, do you want to break it down from a high level point of view? What is the CFM capability assessment?
Yeah, from a high level, what you can think about is it's a way for us to quantify a FinOps practice at a customer. You know, there's ways that we can look at certain metrics like savings plan coverage or unit metrics or other small measures that we can have about certain aspects of the FinOps practice. But what the capability assessment does is it tries to look at all areas of their FinOps practice across 39 different capabilities. And then we can put a metric around that, even around some of the soft skills about how our engineering and finance teams work together. And the idea here is that we're trying to identify areas of improvement so that we can build a FinOps roadmap and work towards improving those areas that we'd like to improve on. So it's good for customers that are newer at FinOps because it helps them to understand the art of the possible, where they're going to get the best return on their time in the short term. But it's also really good for customers who are super mature because it helps them to pinpoint those one or two things that they could improve on. And it also helps to celebrate the success that they've had in the past, and they can help show, you know, all the progress that they've been making.
Brilliant. And who does it with you? Can it something customers do themselves or?
Yeah, right now, the way to do a CFM capability assessment is through someone at AWS, like any one of us on the call here, or it also through, we have certified partners that can deliver the assessment as well. And we are looking at ways in the future to, you know, have more self-service around this, but right now it's more of a guided process. But what that means is that you have someone like, you know, me or Savannah that is helping you along the whole way.
Savannah, have you done a CFM assessment? I can't say it's too long.
Yeah, I've done one, but not for probably a couple of years. Not since it was a spreadsheet. We've got like a really cool portal now that Wade will show later. But I think the process of doing it is also really enlightening for folks because it kind of really encourages the discussion. And depending on who's in the room, sometimes those personas may not talk to each other on a given work day, or may have very different perspectives about where people are at in the organization. So that's honestly almost as valuable as the outcome, and the score is making sure that you're having those dialogues and building an understanding of what's needed across the business as well.
And Wade, what's the big thing that the customer gets out of doing this kind of assessment?
Yeah, so what we're going to do after the assessment is the AWS account team is going to circle back internally, review all of the results from the assessment, and develop specific recommendations for the customer based on what we discovered during the assessment. And then we're going to present that back to the customer, all those recommendations to build a FinOps roadmap for the next 6 to 12 months. So we can really focus on what are we going to action on in the next 6 to 12 months to reach our goals around FinOps. So it's about really creating movement and driving ownership around those action items too.
Cool. And who is involved in this? Vanna, you kind of alluded to this, but it's not just one persona who gets brought into this conversation, right?
Yeah, the best results that we're going to get from one of these assessments is if we have both technical and business finance type stakeholders in the room, and also if we have cross-functional participation across the business. So we want people at different business units. We want people at different technical or finance business stakeholders, so that we can drive that discussion. Like Savannah was talking about, it's not just about the results; it's about the journey along the way, creating that discussion. Sometimes we, find that some of these people are talking for the first time during the assessment, which helps to just break down some silos that we might see developing sometimes.
I've also seen folks do it if they have 2 or 3 business units independently as well. So one per business unit, and then share the results kind of more widely and let some folks who are maybe a little bit more advanced in one of the areas help or mentor some of the folks who have a little bit more learning to do there, which can be really effective because it really makes that collaboration pop a little bit.
Yeah, that's such a nice idea to get people kind of, if you spot someone is really strong at some area, they can kind of self-direct so that they have other people in the organization getting ready to do this. Before we jump into that, I want to do a quick poll, which is, have you done a CFM assessment before? So 1 for yes in the chat, 2 for no. Drop those in there so that we can do it. Wade, how many assessments do you think that you've done over the course of doing these?
Me personally, I've probably done about 25 of them. And it's across all of AWS. We've had over 600 assessments done with our customers since creating the assessment. And that's something also that's really cool is we do have benchmarking data that we can share with customers coming out of this assessment to show how they might benchmark compared to some of the other AWS customers who have taken the assessment. And also, the assessment serves as a benchmark for themselves. So in a year from now, after all, we've made all these CFM improvements, we can retake the assessment with the same customer. And that's another way for them to show their improvement over time in a quantified way.
Yeah, and Costa said, our maturity score has increased annually performing this assessment. We take recommendations on board and in our agile process into improvements, which is great, which is a good segue, which is that you'd have to do it once. Like if you do this score, you can kind of keep taking it over, not every single day. I feel like that would take a long time, but getting a score and improving it and seeing, it's also good to looking back, like people hear me talk about things like training for the gym on here sometimes, and that kind of, if you look back at your notes, you can see how far you've progressed, is a good way to kind of show that gradual change. Without further ado, I am going to go off camera. Savannah's going to go off camera because we only ever have, as you guys know, we don't like to bombard the stream. We only ever want to have 3 personas on here. So don't go anywhere. We're going to drop off and we're going to bring on some special guests that are going to do the assessment with Wade. So the point of this is to see what it would be like in a real-ish scenario. Maybe stick around to see what happens next so you can figure out what we're talking about, in which a finance persona and a developer persona join together to make this assessment, because that's the people you need in the room to have a big point of view. So stick around. And Wade, do you want to answer? I think there's a really good question in the chat that you can maybe take while we're doing this. So we'll bring in our customers as you do that.
Awesome. Yeah, Richard, maybe we could get that on the screen. Okay, awesome. How long does the assessment take? This is a really common question I get from anyone that's interested in the assessment. So there is a little bit of investment here. It does typically take about 2 hours to complete an assessment and answer all 39 questions. Keeping in mind that we do want that discussion, like we were talking about earlier, across different segments of the business or cross-functionally with our technical and finance personas, right? So we definitely want to prioritize the discussion rather than just trying to get through the assessment really quick. So usually 2 hours is a good amount of time, and sometimes we don't take the whole 2 hours. We do have a way that helps to potentially speed that process up. We have what's called the pre-event survey questionnaire, which is basically just a copy of all 39 questions that we can send out to customers ahead of time and have them fill out. And then those results will actually show up in the tool when we go to record those scores in that 2-hour call. Sometimes that can help to speed the process up, or at least serve as a starting point for the discussion if we know that there's a divide between certain parties on their score.
We're the customer.
I'm finance.
I'm Dev. Hi, we're the customer of the keys company. We're a key manufacturing company. That's what we do. And we are going to work with a lovely member of our optics team who is here to help us, which is Wade. And you're going to take us through the CFM assessment thing. We just heard you talking about it, and we're excited to get into it.
Excited to have you here. So we'll go ahead and we can direct you over. I don't know if I've had such exciting customers to do the assessment with before, but really, really great to have you two today. And so I have the first question pulled up on the screen here, and the question's about a mechanism to report on cloud cost and usage. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to score ourselves 1 to 5 based on the rubric that we see on the screen here. And usually what I'll do is just kind of leave it up to our customers here, Savannah and Steph, to start kind of giving their opinions on where they think they're at.
A mechanism to report cloud costs and usage. Okay. Well, I'm in Cost Explorer basically every day, and looking at these options, it seems like that includes, we can make those custom reports. It's kind of a dashboard in itself. And I know that I use that information to make sure that I'm driving changes within the portfolio. So I feel like we're a 5 on this.
No. I have never had access to Cost Explorer, unless I might have briefly had it in individual accounts, but I haven't got an ability to see my entire sets of accounts at all. All I get is the report. I can't filter by anything.
So how do you see your costs then?
I don't look at my costs. Am I supposed to? Chat, am I supposed to look at my costs? Is that what the
developer stuff? You're killing me.
And this is a classic example, I think, for Steph, here that I think a lot of times our finance teams, they live and breathe in those tools for cost monitoring and reporting. So they know it like the back of their hand. But sometimes, people that are deploying those workloads might not have access, or they might have access, not know about it, and not have the training, right? So Steph, the optics team, we'd be happy to do a training for you on Cost Explorer. We'll work with your finance team, Savannah, to make sure you have the right access. And then once you have that access, we'll show you how to use it and develop your reports, and then we can get you enabled on Cost Explorer. Right now, it sounds like we're probably more like a 3, and this is an area where we're going to want to do some enablement with our technical teams like Steph.
So how quickly can we do that, Wade? Like, what does that actually look like? Is that something I can go do today, or can we phase it in? What's it?
Each customer kind of manages their IM a little bit differently. There might be some like operational hoops that you might have to go through to get Steph access. And so kind of depending on your internal processes, it could be as quick as today, or it might, take a day or so to just kind of get through your operational process for getting that access.
Got it. So I should probably talk to my security friends who manage our payer account and see what we can do to get that opened up a little bit more. Are there?
Okay.
Go on.
I say, is there a way that I don't have to look in by every single individual account to see my spend? Can I see everything pulled together somewhere?
Yeah, good question. So we've actually just released a feature within Cost Explorer that lets you set that up and it lets you view multiple accounts from a linked account now. So, if you have a business unit that's got 5 accounts, you can actually view all 5 of your accounts from a single pane of glass now as a linked account. So you don't have to have access to the payer to do that anymore. So it's an awesome feature.
That would be cool. Yeah, I think I've heard of this building views thing. Please
Yes.
set that up. I don't want to have to jump around. And then I know where I'm spending. And then maybe if you need me to like save money or something, I know where I can start looking.
Awesome.
All right. Next
So
question.
we'll move it along here. Yeah, the next question is a mechanism for measuring resource efficiently. So like CPU utilization, elasticity. So how are we monitoring how well that we're using our resources?
I mean,
I don't know.
I look at CloudWatch all the time and I can see my CPU. I try and stay pretty adamant with it. I refresh the metrics quite a lot so I can see kind of how much I'm utilizing it. We have auto scaling enabled, we have serverless on a lot of our applications, and we also use containers. And so I'm always kind of checking the usage of my resources. Is that kind of specifically what we're looking at? Maybe I think I'm a 5. I'm pretty good at that.
Steph, I'm hearing a lot of good stuff from you, but I've never heard it before. So I don't know if I'd put us at a 5. I see that metrics are agreed upon and reported piece. And I know I'm not doing any of that. I do a lot of reporting and metricing on kind of other cloud KPIs, but not necessarily utilization. So it's good to hear that you're doing that, but I think we can be better about the transparency piece.
Oh, okay. Yeah, definitely. There's so much stuff I can give you access to. Maybe we could have some more business ones. Is business metrics and also a good thing that we should do, Wade?
Yeah, absolutely. Business metrics are something that we'd want to look at. Unit metrics and KPIs, I think, are some of the end state of FinOps that we're all trying to drive towards, because those are also a great measure over time. If we know cost per customer, cost per user, cost per transaction, those types of things, then that's how we know over time, even if our cloud spend goes up because we're getting more users, we can see how efficient we're being with that spend. And if our unit cost goes down, that means we're actually more profitable. So it's really important to look at those business unit metrics as well. And it sounds like we might be a little bit split here on the number. So we could probably haggle down to agree upon a number for the score purposes. But one
Okay.
thing I'm thinking here, Steph, is have you used Compute Optimizer? Are you familiar with that tool?
Yes. Yes, I love that tool. I heard the guy who made it. It's a really cool guy. But we use it all the time to track that kind of stuff. So when we look at Compute Optimizer, we have it configured. So we have chosen to have a more aggressive optimization point. So we've said it can be to have as much headroom. So we've made it more configured to our applications. And we've also set it to inject Datadog, which is our main kind of way of measuring our utilization metrics and our kind of read and writes and a lot more statistics. And it's made the recommendations far greater in terms of their accuracy, and we've started to implement them. We're getting into the automation side, but we're starting to track that data for sure.
So
Awesome.
Wade, from more of like a operational perspective, is there a good way for me as the finance or FinOps person to see all this? And then how would you recommend that I start working with my developers a little bit more? It sounds like Steph's got it down. She's not the only business unit on the block. So I want to make sure that we're making sure that everybody's got that down in the same way, or at least has the ability to get this information.
Yes, it sounds like Steph really knows what she's talking about with this. So that's awesome. We should probably have Steph teach other development teams about how to use these metrics. And, that could be a great opportunity for like a lunch and learn for her to share her best practices. For you, Savannah, what I would think about is you have so many business units to worry about. And you probably don't want to be at the level of detail that Steph's at on those specific workloads. I'd probably be using Compute Optimizer and or Cost Optimization Hub to try to find resources that are like the biggest opportunity for saving, maybe that are like way oversized. And I would start there with some of your bigger rocks. And you can kind of combo that with the education, and probably some of those smaller opportunities will start to take care of themselves over time too, as people learn more.
I fear I may be opening Pandora's box here, but how does all of this work with Graviton? Do I have to think about that differently when it comes to some of those utilization metrics, or how do I wrap my head around that with regards to my modernization activity?
Yeah, Graviton, you're probably going to be thinking of just a little bit more about application architecture there on what's eligible for Graviton. But when you're looking at the utilization metrics, you're going to be thinking about them in a very similar way to other chipsets.
Got it. Okay, so I should probably reach out to my AWS account team if I'm really thinking about re-architecting then.
Absolutely. We have resources to help you. For the purposes of this question here, I could definitely see us at a 4 for Steph, because she's using this to drive technology decisions. At a greater level for your guys' company, it's probably more like a 3. And so we can probably just go with 3 here because that also lets us know this is an area that we're going to want to be looking at in the future. And that's kind of a good point is, sometimes we want to bias on these assessments to score us higher and show that we're doing really well. And there is areas that we're doing well, and that's totally fine. But we probably want to get the most accurate score possible that represents the business so that we can use this as our future benchmark, right? So if we score a 5 on everything, then there's theoretically no area to improve on, right? So we want to be as representative as possible here.
Yeah, there's no reason for us to give ourselves a high score and inflate anything when it's not going to help us in the long run to identify any issues that we actually need to focus on. Well, I'm excited to figure out a metric that we can do per key sale because that's obviously the business that we're and just before you click on the next one, in case you've joined us, we're talking all about the CFM assessment, and our lovely optics member Wade is here taking Savannah and I, the dev from the Keys company and the finance person from the Keys company, through this assessment. And if you would like to do this, make sure you stick around to the end to find out how you can do it. Okay, on to the next question.
All right, next question is about managing our commitment-based purchases. So this would be like your reserved instances and savings plans. I bet Savannah's going to have a great answer for here.
Yeah, I manage a big compute savings plan at the payer level for everybody. So we're pretty good to go on that. Coverage is good. It's been working for us. Really appreciate AWS putting out some new tooling at reInvent last year to help me kind of scope some what if analysis on that. But I think we're pretty solid on this one. I would rank us at a 5.
Is this something that I need to worry about as a developer when it comes to those savings plans?
No, we do it all at the payer account and it's all shared. So as long as you're not expanding a ton in short order or contracting a ton, we would appreciate a heads up if that happens. But because of the strategy that we've chosen, it's really kind of off your plate.
Cool. What about RIs? Do I need to let you know if should I purchase any reserved instances, or is that still done at the payer level?
Please don't purchase your own reserved instances, especially not for EC2. We have an existing strategy with a compute savings plan for EC2. You guys, at least based on the billing data that I've seen, use mostly compute. So it's kind of just been something that I manage for the whole organization and you don't have to worry about. With that said, if you really start ramping up on RDS or OpenSearch or Redshift, et cetera, any of the managed services, we should have a conversation about that because it might make sense to purchase some RIs to cover those non-EC2 services if you know that they're going to stick around for long enough and be steady state.
All right, I'll make sure to let you know if we have any big plans for changing our infrastructure. So what do we think, Wade, a 5?
Yeah, it sounds like we're implementing in a centralized manner, but I don't hear much input from our technology teams here. It sounds like Savannah just kind of handles this, and that's something we see from a lot of our customers is that their central FinOps team is really good at managing the savings plans. And with the flexibility that we have with the savings plans, it kind of makes it so you can manage it without having to get tons of inputs from our technology teams. But for those RIs, like for our managed services like RDS and Redshift, I would definitely recommend talking with our development teams before purchasing those. We want to make sure that we're not trying to both save money and hurting each other in the process. So what I see all the time is we have a finance person that sees we've been using an instance type for a while and they make a purchase on that to save some money. And then we have a developer like Steph who says, I've been using this instance type for a while. Maybe I can upgrade to the new one, or maybe I can switch to Graviton. And they're trying to do that to save money too. So both parties are really trying to do the right thing here, but they're not communicating. And so if Savannah already bought the RI and then Steph changes her instance type, then we might have that RI going unused if we don't have other usage that matches that RI. So that's really where we want to drive some of that two-way communication around what we're planning to use as well, especially when it comes to those managed services. But I think you guys are doing really well here.
Steph, do you have like an annual architectural planning cycle or anything like that, or you have to tell whoever you report to on the development side, like what kind of tech stack you're going to use for the next year, or share those plans?
We don't do it annually, but we do it quarterly because things are changing all the time. But we could definitely kind of bring you into that or share with you the results from it of what we're anticipating for the next quarter. Would that help?
Yeah, I think that would be good, especially for some of those managed services. Like if that becomes a bigger part of the footprint, it would be good to know how long they're going to stay steady so that we can decide whether or not to purchase an RI to cover them or what the best path there is.
Okay, we'll do. All right.
I think we're a floor here, and just another plug for those managed service RIs. There's a lot of savings to be had, and I think people kind of get shy because they're scared of that commitment. They love the flexibility of the savings plans, right? But especially on modern instance types, let's get some RDS RIs purchased.
Brilliant. All right, I want to see, because Savannah and I are like battling it out a little bit. I want to see in the audience who is more of a Steph, a developer, and who is more a Savannah, a finance person. So chat, 1 for developer, me, and 2 for Savannah. Or which wig do you prefer? Wig? I mean, this is my hair, sorry. This is it. If the color choices, you can tell our top colors. And let's see. Oh, we've got a bit of a mixed bag. Oh, no, it's just me. Huh? I thought I saw a 2 come in, and so now I'm like, oh, okay. Don't know what happened there. Well, there you go. People are liking the developer, which is good. But it's also good to kind of share the perspective. And chat, let us know in the chat if you would have any questions, comments about any of the things we're talking about today, or any specific questions for someone having a FinOps persona, a finance persona, or a developer persona. I don't know why, but I'm getting the votes even though there's 2s coming in. So there is a mixed bag coming up on the chat. All right, wait, let's keep going. Yeah, I don't know why I fixed it somehow, so it has to be me.
So our next question is on right-sizing cloud resources. And so do we have a mechanism for, checking for right-sizing opportunities and delivering on them?
I mean,
I think I see you doing this. Looking at the spend, I don't have a mechanism for it, but I think I do see it happening.
Yeah, like I said, we love Compute Optimizer. We're really on it with that. We've just started checking out the new options with things like DynamoDB and RDS, and it's now, there's been some improvements with it. And so the auto scaling recommendations are a lot more accurate. So we've been taking those on board and trialing things. Luckily, everything we build is in infrastructure as code. So making the adjustments is a lot easier than if we did it kind of ClickOps style. So we've been very specific about that. But we are always building new workloads. There are so many different business units. So sometimes the grow in our spend might be hidden by the savings we make by right sizing might be hidden, but we are trying to kind of track this over time. So you're using Cost Explorer to see that kind of right sizing or that change in spend?
Yeah, so I'm Cost Explorer. You guys don't always answer my emails, so I have to kind of be a detective a little bit and sleuth around and figure out who's using what. I do know which accounts are yours, and I've got them organized into a lovely cost category, so it's really easy for me to see who is who and where that's going, and I can kind of like make some assumptions based on the trends that I see going on.
Well, I've heard that Andy's team is really bad at it, so maybe you should look at his one.
Noted. I'll jot that down.
But my team is really good. We really take on, and it's also good. We always also, one thing that we do is when we start building out a new application, like we mentioned, that quarterly kind of new thing we're doing, when it's in dev, we always make sure we choose the smallest instance type, because we don't need to spend tons of money on something we're not using, and then we scale out. So all of the infrastructure of code is set to be the micros or the smallest one that we need. And then if we need to open it up, then we can. But just for testing and development, we don't go that big. So we also aren't using anything kind of huge.
That's good. Never want to see a 24 XL in a dev environment, especially not over the weekend.
Oh no, don't worry. I don't work on the weekends. As soon as we finish, everything gets turned off. I don't need any of that. I'm breaking the stereotype. Who needs to work on the weekend? I'm not paid that much. Wait, anything else we need to think about with this question?
Steph, it sounds like you're thinking about a lot of the right things. You're using auto scaling, you're using the tools like Compute Optimizer, you're doing this on a regular cadence. Maybe we could assume all of your other developers at the Keys company are doing this too. So, I'm kind of thinking that you sound like a 5 here. Some things that our finance team like Savannah might be thinking about is, aggregating some of these recommendations from Compute Optimizer, and then she's mentioned maybe emailing them to the development teams to make sure that they're aware. What she probably wants to be careful of is just like directing orders and saying, hey, go right size this, because just looking at the utilization data, you might not know about some nuances that are going on with that workload. It might be intentionally over provisioned for certain reasons. So it's always important that we have our communication from a finance perspective with our development teams who know more about those workloads.
Perfect. Yeah, can you like Slack me the request? Is that possible?
Yeah, I can use Slack. Is that better for you?
Yeah, or Teams, whatever the new thing is. I joke. Brilliant.
Okay, so our first 2 questions were on measurement and accountability. Our second 2 questions were on cost optimization, and now we're moving into our planning and forecasting pillar. So our next question is a mechanism to estimate new cloud workloads.
Well, when we know what's coming up in that quarter, but Savannah, are you told what we're planning in terms of like the bigger picture?
No, I am not. Yeah, we have an annual finance process, and a lot of that is based on me just taking what's there and projecting it forward and hoping that's what's happening. If you guys have any like technical details that you could share, it sounds like these quarterly processes would be really great for me to get plugged into. And I can also help you estimate some of those costs. Do you have a cost component of that forecast now, or is it just technical?
It's just technical. Why do you need to know? Is it important for like the business?
It's important to the budget, yeah. It all costs money at the end of the day. And the more money that we can save and the more that we can be aware of what's happening, the more salaries I can pay out. So the more help, which is probably good.
So if I turn everything off all the time, like that would be good. If I shut down production, I should do that and I'll get more pay.
Don't do that. Production's got to stay up, but if we can be a little bit closer to understanding like what's upcoming, then I can project better. We can all project better, and the company as a whole has a better idea of what those expenditures are and can budget more effectively.
Wait, is there anything that we have on like the AWS side that I've got my architecture, we know we need to build, how I can price that out and then give it to Savannah?
Actually, we do. So it can even take influence from your current workloads to start as a basis. So we have a new pricing calculator that was announced for public preview at reInvent this year. And it can take your existing usage and you can use that to help build your basis of your forecast. You can build net new things within there as well, just like you could with the legacy pricing calculator. So highly recommend checking out that new pricing calculator because it will help you estimate the cost of your new workloads. And I think this is super important, not just for Savannah's sake, but this is oftentimes or something that's really hard to get right is cloud forecasting. There's so many different little variances that can happen that if you're just looking at the past and projecting growth off of that, like Savannah's doing, there's so many nuances that we probably don't know about. Net new workloads, maybe workloads that might be going away and being shut down. And so there might be some pluses and minuses that help equal out over time that Savannah's looking at and not thinking there's a variance. But it's important that we understand, the drivers behind some of this. And the end state here that we're looking for is some type of demand driver-based forecast. And so if we know that the end users on the Keys to AWS Optimization website are driving our cloud cost, if we can put some kind of unit metric around that and we can dynamically adjust our forecast as our users change, that's really going to help with forecast accuracy because it's going to help us go up and down with the forecast based on the projection of those unit metrics.
So Steph, let me know what you think about this. I'll take a spin with the new pricing calculator that Wade's talking about. Wade, I may need your help if I get stuck, but I'll try it myself and see what I can pull up and see what I can do. And then Steph, what I can do is basically build out like current state. If there's an ability to pull in past usage, I'll just pull that in. And then during your next quarterly finance meeting, I can just be a fly on the wall and try to use what you guys are saying to populate that going forward. And then we can sync up about it afterwards and see if that matches what you're thinking. That way, you know a little bit more about what kind of cost is probably going to be upcoming for you guys, and you can plan that. And then we can kind of take optimization as it comes and we'll iterate on it and hopefully get more effective and like more precise as the time goes on. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, I mean, I've just had a quick Google, and this pricing calculator is the new one seems way better than the old one because, yeah, like you said, I can actually pull in the cost I already have, which is good because the old one I had to do it all manually and it wasn't exact. This is a lot easier. Also, you can use tags apparently, which is good. We are good at tagging in our business. We've done some good tagging. And like you said, we've got cost allocation tags. So yeah, that sounds good. We can start to map this out. And because it's so simple, we can base it off of old work. It's not going to be that hard to create new ones for the quarter.
Yeah, if we can save them too, then we can just carry them forward and kind of do a cross compare between where did we actually end up between where did we think we were going to end up. So let's start there.
Wade, what do you think we are in this then?
I think we're probably at a 2. There's an ad hoc process here. It sounds like we have some plans to make that better. So I could see us being a 4 and a 5, real soon here. But this will probably end up on our FinOps roadmap. And with any of those AWS tools, just go out there and use them. Like Steph was saying, check them out. And if you have problems, talk to your AWS account team, and we're happy to help walk you through if you get stuck with anything.
Cool. All right, next question.
Okay, so this is kind of related. So it's a mechanism to analyze and act on cloud spend variance. So let's assume that Savannah's forecast was like really, really good and accurate. And how are we acting upon any of those variances?
So
go on.
No, you go. What am I going to do if it goes wrong? I'll look at the old one and the new one.
I know you get emails from me.
I don't read my I do read my emails.
Yeah, we've had a couple of these kind of recently, right? There was like a service that I hadn't seen before that went like high in one of your accounts fairly recently. It was like Cloud Trail or something.
Yeah. Well, and we even had a question in the chat, which is how do we deal with anomalies in spend? And I did find out that, okay, so I was building something and I was playing around with stuff, and the guide I read said you needed a cloud trail, and I saw we had one in the organization, but I didn't know what it was. So I made my own one, and then apparently you pay for the second cloud trail, like whatever. So I got this notification from cost anomaly detection, which is something that's set up by default on my account, which is really cool. And I just got a message being like, I got new spend. So I got rid of it and I use the organization one now. But yeah, I didn't know that it would cost money to have an audit service. I thought they were all free. I was wrong. It's the first one's free, which is very nice of AWS. But yeah, that's how I knew about it. So that anomaly detection helped me stop that. But I see now I just need to check using that pricing calculator we mention if there's a new service, if I need to enable it, how much it will cost, and then I can plan for that.
And do you think there's a way that we can make that anomaly detection alert like a little bit more to the forefront of your daily work? Because I know like you got it cleaned up, but it's kind of a stressful day for me seeing that.
Okay.
It sounds like Steph doesn't like email. Maybe we set up an SNS notification to her Slack channel. It sounds like she checks her Slack a lot more.
Yeah, that'd be awesome if we could do that.
Yeah, let's do that. And then also we can set up maybe a distribution list that has both of our emails on it, or maybe just a wider one so that you can see what's going on. But the Slack channel would make it a lot easier for me to have noticed that, because I didn't have Cost Explorer access, so I wasn't able to see anything. So the anomaly detection was just set up already for me. So yeah, that would be good. But cloud variance, we do try and have that plan of what we're going to spend, and like we said, the quarterly review, so we have a plan, but we weren't pricing it out, so we could only tell if something went crazy if it was unexpected. So the new spend on CloudTrail was new, but if our EC2 spend grows, that's what we're expecting if the business is doing well. So we need to maybe be a little bit more eagle-eyed about any of those weird variances for sure.
Yeah, I feel like that one was pretty easy for me to see because it wasn't there before, and it was like a completely new service that we'd never used before that wasn't in our bill. But I'm worried about the things that we're not seeing, just like you said. Like if you got an EC2 instance out there that's just like you've left the water on and it's dripping and just continuing to spend money. If it's like obfuscated by everything else you're running, that's like very difficult for us to figure out and get resolved.
Well, one thing we could do is, we said we're really good at tagging, but I know that some other teams might not be as good. So we could have a look and see what spend is tagged, and if there's anything that isn't tagged, because everything should be tagged through infrastructure as code. It's just that people are doing stuff in the console. So maybe we could figure out if there's any idle resources in there. Wade, is there any way we can see idle resources in any of the tools?
Yeah, idle resources, that's a compute optimizer is another way in which we can see idle resources. Trusted advisor as well is another way in which we can see those idle resources. So another plug for compute optimizer. That team's making improvements to that tool all the time. So definitely go check it out. And then another thing you got me thinking about here is AWS budgets and alerts. And so if we have a pretty accurate forecast and we set up a budget based on those tags or based on your account, Steph, then we can be alerted if you start to go over budget, or if you're projected to start to go over budget, you can kind of tune it however you want to be alerted there. Along with anomaly detection, budgets is a great way to use both of those tools together to try and catch big anomalies, but also like, that slow drip that Savannah was mentioning that could potentially put us over forecast.
Yeah, I've got one set up for ODCRs. We were testing ODCRs a while ago, and there's like a very specific usage type of unused box. So I just put that in the budget, and now if there's ever one that's unused, I know like as quickly as possible, which has been helpful.
That's so cool. I didn't know you could do that.
Is that when Steph requested all that capacity and then didn't use it?
No, that wasn't me. It wasn't, I swear.
It was Andy's team.
It was Andy's team.
So it sounds like we're identifying a root cause here. Steph was taking care of that extra log that she had going on. So, actions being taken by our team. So it sounds like we're probably more like a 4 here with our analysis. Probably some improvement with some of those tools that we mentioned, but doing really well. Okay, now we're moving into our FinOps section. Our last 2 questions will be around financial operations. So this one's about securing an executive sponsor for our cloud financial management implementation.
We got Adam. He's very on it and very, very passionate about making sure that we've got the right resources and are communicating this stuff out. So I feel comfortable about this one. Steph, what's your thoughts on that?
If Adam thinks it's important, then I think it's important. So if he's already given us some access to doing this, and he's already said that we could take time to do this thing called a fin hack. So we have some support from him to spend time on optimization. So it's not always build. It's more about making sure that it's sustainable. So I think executive sponsorship is really good from that point of view.
Yeah, I think based on the words that are coming out of your mouth right now, all of those are green flags that it's working.
Nice. Short and sweet one, I think, for this.
Short and sweet. Yeah, it sounds like a 5. I think this is super important. Like if Adam didn't care about it and he was actively saying, I don't care about cost, then Steph's probably a lot less likely to care about it as well. So really important that we have executive alignment top down, that FinOps is a priority. We tend to see a lot more movement that way.
I guess, Wade, you've done a bunch of these, right? Is that common? What happens when it's a 1?
Yeah, when it's a 1, a lot of times what we'll hear, from different teams is like, well, I measure it on, A, B, and C, and that's not something I measured on. So I have to focus on the things I measured on to make sure that I'm hitting the metrics for my job, right? So I think it's important that for everyone that's touching the cloud, they have some type of measure on cost. It doesn't need to be Steph's whole job because her job is developing, right? But if she has a metric that she's accountable for her spend, then, that empowers her and enables her to actually take action on it. Versus if she's measured on all these other things and she's just being told cloud cost is important, well, she's probably going to focus on the things she's measured on.
Got it. Okay. Well, I'm glad that we're not in that situation. It seems like so.
Yeah, awesome. And then our last question for today is just using CFM assistance from AWS, industry peers, or others. So how are we networking to build our FinOps practice?
Well, I look at this show called The Keys to AWS Optimization, and they have a lovely YouTube channel which you can subscribe to now, and it can keep up to date with all the different optimization stuff. It's where I found out about Compute Optimizer, it's where I found out about anomaly detection, and it's how I learn about loads of optimization stuff. And they have some other good customers coming on to share their stories. So the link below takes you to a description of all of their episodes in the past and all of the future ones. So we'll check that one out.
Hard to top that one, Steph. Really hard to top that one. I would say I lean on the AWS account team a lot. My TAM is super helpful. They're my superhero, and even when they don't know exactly what the answer is, they're very well connected. There are a lot of ways that they can get access to other specialists within AWS and other resources. So I find that really valuable. The other one that I really love is it's actually a little robot. It's called Cost News Bot. You follow it on Twitter. You can also put it into your Slack, and it keeps you up to date on all of those AWS launches. So I love perusing through that and then figuring out like what is going to be applicable to my daily work, what new stuff I could try out, and what new stuff I can recommend to Steph, since a lot of those are like cost-effective technical solutions as well. So shout out Cost News Bot. We love Cost News Bot here.
Yeah, and I think that we also got it set up in a blog. There's a blog about how to set up that Cost News Bot in our Slack. So I'll find the link and share that. But Savannah, are you part of the FinOps Foundation?
Not yet, but I would love to be. Do you know how I could do that, Wade?
Yeah, it's actually pretty easy. We're just talking to the FinOps Foundation this week. You can just go on their website and hit join and just provide them your information. Then you start getting emails from them about all their events going on. They just had a talk, I think it was last week, about AI and FinOps. So that was really interesting. And if you can't make the talk, they usually send out the recording that you can listen to afterwards. And they have a pretty cool event, I think, coming up here in June, like FinOps X in San Diego. So if you're really looking to network with other FinOps personas, that's another great way to learn from industry peers. There's a lot of talks from customers on stage at FinOps X.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, I'll definitely check that out. That sounds really valuable.
And I've got a link to that blog I just mentioned. Check that out to get those Slack notifications. So how do we sound on this one?
I think we're probably a 4 here. So Savannah didn't really know about the FinOps Foundation. Kind of surprised. She says that she's really good at FinOps and she didn't know. So, maybe we're more like a 4 here. Not that I would ever say that it's a bad thing to not know about FinOps Foundation. It's always time to learn. But maybe more like a 4 here. And so, maybe we'll see Savannah on stage at FinOps X next year. And there'll probably be a 5.
Yeah, we could co-speak, Savannah. That'd be great.
Oh, perfect. Let's talk about our pricing calculator usage.
Okay. Anything else we need to... Have we got any more questions, Wade?
That's all the sample questions that we wanted to share today. We just shared, 2 from each of our pillars. But if you want the full deal of the capability assessment, like AWS Cost Layer, then, make sure to talk to your account team and you can go through the whole thing. And then we'll build you a bespoke FinOps roadmap from the results.
Okay. All right. So let's go off. Thank you so much for taking us through this, Wade. We'll go back and get your co-host for this session, and then we can talk a little bit about the outcomes of this. But while we're gone, there's a question in the chat about accessing CFM tools. If you wouldn't mind taking that on for us, let's take this down, and we will be.
Yeah, accessing. So how to access CFM tools, most of the AWS CFM tools are going to be within the AWS Cost Management Suite. So that's going to include things like Cost Explorer, AWS Budgets and Alerts, Cost Anomaly Detection, Compute Optimizer. And so those are all created by the same team, and they're part of our Cost Management Suite. Some of our tools do require separate access. So there's access for like viewing the Cost Management Suite. And there are some tools like Savings Plan Analyzer, for example, that do require a separate permission set. And so the first thing you're probably going to want to do is just get access to the Cost Management Suite, Cost Explorer, and things like that. And then you can add on additional things to that, like the savings plan analyzer, for example.
And we're back. That was great. We loved watching on. We had a funny comment in the chat, which was when you have a capability assessment of 4, but EDM concert 6. Well, thank you all for watching along and joining in with that and having some good questions in the chat, and Wade for being a good sport and letting us do that. But hopefully it opened up your eyes to the discussions that we're going into, those personas that do happen in the room. That is from experiences that we've had. And so sometimes customers are really great at certain bits, like the developer was so good at doing some of the optimization, but the collaboration with other parts of the business was a bit on the lower side. So as FinOps is always about bringing technology, business, and finance together, we need to kind of make that holistic viewpoint. But Wade, what happens after this assessment?
Yeah, usually I like to have about a week or 2 weeks in between the assessment and the report out. That's going to give me and the account team time to put our heads together and go through several iterations of the recommendations that we're going to want to share. And then what we'll do is we'll sit back down with the customer and all the personas that were involved in the assessment, and then we'll share the score. And we'll share that compared to the benchmark of other AWS customers that have taken the assessment, just to kind of give an idea of like, where are we landing? And then what we're going to do is go through each pillar, see, save, plan, and run. And we're going to have specific recommendations for each one of those pillars. And what we're trying to do here is we're trying to drive recommendations that we're really going to do action on in the next 6 to 12 months. So our idea here is we're not going to just throw a bunch of recommendations at you. It's going to be really tailored based on your scores and the discussion that we're having during that. And then we'll go back and forth with the customer and agree upon those actions and assign target dates and assign action owners, both from AWS and from the customer. And so that's going to help us to continue to check in on that through the FinOps roadmap that we're building and make sure that we're driving action, because they'll have a bespoke owner on each one of those action items. And then, a year from then, hopefully we've got a lot of progress. We can redo the assessment and show all that progress. And this is a great way to show like those executive sponsors how well their team is doing, because sometimes it is hard to put a number around a FinOps practice. There's so many different things that we can be doing. It's very nuanced based on each customer. And so this is a great way where we can show that improvement. So that way that executive sponsor, they go, I've hired 3 FinOps personas. What am I getting for that? They can help see the value they're getting.
Yeah, I feel like
it's not always about reducing money. Go on, Seth.
Yeah, exactly, Steph. It's not always like a dollar figure. And it's especially, I think, valuable to have these conversations and to quantify stuff in this way when you are in a growth phase, because your spend might go up because your what you've brought onto AWS has increased. We can mitigate that with unit cost metrics, obviously, and kind of measure that in a different way. But if you're an executive who isn't like clued into that as much, making sure that we do have a way to like measure that soft progress that doesn't necessarily like have a hard dollar sign associated with it is super critical.
Yeah, Savannah, that example you mentioned, I see that all too often, is where we don't have a good idea of the unit metrics. And I've had customers where their business has never been better and they're making tons of money, but that meant their cloud costs went up too. And because we didn't understand that relationship, we have executives saying we're spending too much on the cloud. But what they're really actually doing is they're halting their revenue by trying to pull back the cloud spend in that way. So unit metrics are super important. They're actually the #1 lowest scoring question of all the 39 questions that we have.
Wow.
And so it really shows that customers are struggling with unit metrics across all segments, enterprise and smaller businesses. So if there's anything you're taking from this show today, probably go try and focus on some unit metrics. Everyone can do better at that.
Yeah, even if it's just compute or storage, it doesn't have to be a business one, because we know business ones can be harder to get. We always joke about, we have stories from optics, people doing a per car usage. I've had people telling me they wanted to sell Robbie Williams tickets and it was per Robbie Williams ticket was a metric. But there's all these things, or like we said, per key. So it's whatever works your business or the application, and then you can have some wider ones. And so I put in the chat, lack of executive sponsor means you're going to have a bad time, which is true. You need to have that. And Cosplayer suggested take time for specific recommendations. The good thing is about that assessment, yes, the questions are the same for everyone, but you have the opportunity to discuss it and have a specific roadmap of things you want to implement. We can kind of focus on that. And I've got a question, which is the CFM assessment tool, is it internal tool or is it public? So how can people get access to it from this?
Yeah, good question. Right now, it is an internal tool, so it would require someone from AWS like myself or Savannah to take you through it. Or you can just talk to your account team about that. We also have partners that we've certified to deliver the assessment, and they can deliver that too. But we are exploring ways to make this more self-service. That's a great piece of feedback that we've gotten in the past, and so be on the lookout for a potentially self-service version of the assessment soon.
And if you have any questions, feel free to email costoptimization@amazon.com. We can always help your account teams and kind of point them in that direction. All right, we have our Richard secret summary. So Richard is not AI, as I always remind everyone, but he listens to our conversation and creates a summary so that at the end of every episode, you can always go there and see the highlights and see a summary of what we've talked about. So let's see what he's done. A spy career may not have been the cards for Savannah and Seth. I take that very personally. I wanted to be a spy when I was a kid. How do you know? Did you think our disguises were disguising enough?
I thought it was very
the CFM Capability Assessment provides metrics of FinOps best practices, and it benchmarks against other customers and yourself, so anonymized benchmarks, but it can give you a way of comparing. We know customers like to do that, but I always say, it's important about what you want a metric inside, so you have that year-over-year view, and get remediation plans to improve your maturity. So what is going to be the thing that you focus on versus the thing that is, what's going to be the biggest thing that you're going to focus your energy on in the next few weeks. Okay, that is going to be it from us in a sec. Wade, anything to share, last minute bits?
Just want to say thanks for having me. And if you haven't done an assessment, talk to your account team. It's a valuable exercise. It's going to really accelerate your FinOps practice over the next year.
Brilliant. Savannah, anything from you?
No, I think we covered it. Wade, thank you for taking the time to walk our two silly customers through that.
And thank you for everyone for letting us have a little bit of fun. We do like to have fun on this show. Don't forget that you can subscribe to the YouTube channel for keys to AWS Optimization, or subscribe to YouTube for events channel to see this, or subscribe to the Twitch channel to see this. There's a lot of other great shows that stream from these platforms, so you can check those out. The last thing I'll say, if anyone is watching and going to the London Summit, I will be there. I'm doing a talk in the lightning talk area in the village at 4:40 about Gen AI and bias in Gen AI. So come and say hi, or if you see me at any of the Amazon events, make sure to say hi. And Savannah and I are going to be at FinOps X, which is really cool. So if anyone's going to be there, come speak to us. We'll have the AWS booth in the AWS room, but come say hi if you're a fan of the show. And the last thing I will plug, my brain is just gone in that last few seconds. I was like, I love this, actually. A quick last comment. I could not keep my eyes closed during the session. It's so bright. I love this. And with my new lighting, it made it kind of extra bright. But yeah, if you have any last minute questions, comments, then let us know. But the series, where we're going to be focusing on a lot of AI features in the next couple of weeks. So next week, we're actually going to be talking about how to optimize Amazon Bedrock. A big topic. So we're going to have Adam, who's our resident FinOps and Gen AI guy, and we've got an expert who is way more of a deeper technical expert coming in to talk about the AI and Bedrock, so that we can give some real technical approach. So make sure to see us next week. All right, that is it from all of us. We will see you next week. Have a good rest of your day. Bye, everyone.